Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in Lund, Sweden. For today's episode of It's Only a Game, we are going to take a look at this game, Love Letter. Now this game initially looks quite simple with only 16 cards, and it is in some sense very simple, very easy to learn, but at the same time it relies upon a lot of logic and deduction, so it can be quite a thought-provoking game. This has won many different awards, and in 2014 it was recommended by Spiel des Jahres, so it has gotten a lot of attention, and rightfully so. It is a very good game. Well, I thought we could go ahead now and I will give you a bit of the backstory for the game, show you some of the mechanics, and then give you a bit of the fluff narrative that goes along with the different characters involved in the game. Let us begin with the backstory for Love Letter. The guard looked at Bartholomew Achaidh up and down for a moment, and then frowned. "I'm sorry, Master Achaidh, but the princess is not seeing visitors at this time. She is, of course, in despair over the arrest of her mother." "Of course," the young composer said, nodding and looking appropriately sympathetic. "But I'm not just visiting, you see. Her Highness requested my instruction. We are to practice her singing." "The princess already has a vocal maestro," the gruff woman replied, raising an eyebrow. "I'm sure he knows that, Odette," said a kind voice echoing down the hall that connected the residence to the palace. The two turned to see Suzanne, one of Princess Annette's handmaidens, walking towards them. "What the good composer means to say is that Annette requested his work for their practice." The young woman smiled at the guard and gave Bartholomew a conspiratorial wink. From his satchel, Bartholomew produced a sealed tube. "If you would be so kind as to deliver these sheets of music, my dear Suzanne," he said, with a smile and a genteel nod. The guard took the tube from him, but as it changed hands, something with a little weight shifted inside the tube. "What's this, then?" the guard asked, jostling it next to her ear. "Certainly not a small statue of a bird the princess is so fond of," Bartholomew thought. "Ah, yes, the quill and ink I use to pen the music, in case she or the maestro wish to make any changes. I always deliver some with a new composition." Suzanne gently took the case from the suspicious guard. "Oh, would you stop, Odette? It's just some music," she chided playfully. "I'll see to it that my lady gets these," she added, with a hand on Bartholomew's arm. "I'm sure she'll be eager to see the contents." With that brief narrative, we come now to the object of the game. In the wake of the arrest of Queen Marianne for high treason, none was more heartbroken than her daughter, Princess Annette. Suitors throughout the city, state of tempest, sought to ease Annette's sorrow by courting her to bring some joy into her life. Now you, as the player, are one of these suitors trying to get your love letter to the princess. But unfortunately, she has locked herself in the palace, so you must rely on intermediaries to carry your message. During the game, you hold one secret card in your hand, and this is who currently carries your message of love for the princess. Make sure that the person closest to the princess holds your love letter at the end of the day, so it reaches her first. The components of the game are actually quite simple, as I mentioned already. We have 16 cards total, with values of 1 through 8. We have the guard, priest, baron, handmaid, prince, king, countess, and princess herself. In addition to that, we have several counting pieces here that you can use to keep track of if your letter gets through to the princess or not. And if you look on these cards, each of them have obviously different number values, and the higher the number, the higher the value. But over here as well, on the side of the cards, we have different stars, and that tells you how many of each card exists in the game. So for example, the guard, there are 5 stars here, so we know that there are 5 guard cards in play. The priest has 2 stars, so there are 2 cards, so on and so forth. There's 1 king, 1 countess, and 1 princess. And these are really important numbers to know when you're making your deductions and your probability guesses, because we know there are 16 cards and we have so many out of 16, so as you're counting your cards, you can make your deductions to try and make the best choice for your next move. Alright, let's go ahead and show you actually the game mechanics as we do a sample round. What we're going to do when we start out is you always take the top card off, and that makes it kind of a wild card, so you can't know exactly which cards other people have, because there's always one that's going to be hidden. Now let's play for 3 players, and when we play with 3 players, we do not need to take any extra cards out. And we'll go ahead and just set up our hands right here. Now what you need to do then is the person who is the youngest, or the last one who had a date, they are the one who gets to begin. And we'll just say this is youngest, and then we'll go around in a circle. What you do is the first thing is you draw a card. So now we have 2 cards in our hand, and we keep these hidden. And we'll flip them over. And what we need to do then is you have to be able now to play a card each turn that you draw one of your 2 cards, and you have to do what it says on the card. So we have 2 guards here, and what the instructions on the guard card say is this: name a non-guard card and choose another player. If that player has that card, he or she is out of the round. So it's possible now with guards to be able to kick people out of the game. So we're going to go and play one of our guard cards, and we will name player number 2. And we are going to guess that, based on our probability, we're going to say they have a guard as well. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now this person does not have a guard, so they would say no. That is not correct. And of course you need to be honest here, and they will then be done with their turn. And what I like to do is to then put our cards in a pile like this. The rules say you're supposed to lay the cards out like this as you go, but I think it's more fun that you lay the cards on top of each other and you force all the other players to remember what is underneath. So you only have the discard pile with 1 card showing the most recent card to be discarded. So we go on to the next player's turn, and they flip over this card, and they have a prince, and they, as we know already, they have a priest. Now, let's see here. We're going to keep our prince because he has a value of 5, and that's pretty good. And we are going to play our priest, and the instructions here say look at another player's hand. So we are going to look at player number 3's hand. So player number 3 will show player number 2 secretly, and this player now sees that they have a king, so he knows for the next round that they have a king, and he'll be done with his turn. And we continue on in this fashion with the game. Player number 3 gets a guard, and we know they have a guard and a king. So the player wants to hold on to the king because it's a very high card, and they are going to play a guard. And they are going to pick player number 1. And once again, they see there are 2 guards down, and we know there are 5 out there. So we're still going to go with probability here. They're going to guess the guard. And sure enough, this person does have a guard, which means that they are then kicked out of the game. So that means we're down to 2 players. Now we keep playing like this, either until one of these 2 players is kicked out, and in that way, the remaining player gets to deliver 1 letter to the princess, or we keep going until all the cards have been played through, and after the last card has been drawn, it is then the person with the highest point value remaining is the one who is able to deliver their letter. So let's say, this is very unlikely, but let's say that we got through all of these cards and we got to the end of the game, and then this person having the highest point value of 6 is able then to deliver their card to the princess. So this person in the first round would gain 1 letter. And now when we play with 3 people, the point is the first person to be able to collect 5 letters, or to deliver 5 letters to the princess, will then be the winner. So once that first round is finished, we go ahead and shuffle all the cards again, and we begin again. The person who won the last round gets to start. Along with the playing cards now, they also give you a set of 4 cards that have the list of the card values and also a summary of their abilities, but I thought we could go through each of the cards here individually. Number 1 is the guard card, and this is you name a non-guard card and choose another player. That player has that card, he or she is out of the round, so that's a strong card for kicking someone out of that round. Number 2 is the priest, and this allows you to look at another player's hand. Number 3 is the Baron, and this is where you and another player secretly compare hands. The player with the lower value is out of the round. So this is really good if you suspect that someone has a 1 or a 2 value, you can play that one. Or even if you have, say, the princess in your hand, you can play that one and you know you've got a guaranteed knockout. Number 4, the handmaid. Until your next turn, ignore all effects from other players' cards. This basically gives you immunity for a round, which can be very helpful when things get tight. Number 5, the prince. Choose any player, including yourself, to discard his or her hand and draw a new card. That can be very helpful now if somebody knows which cards you have. Then you can play your prince and you can get rid of those and get a fresh start, so to speak. Number 6 is the king. You trade hands with another player of your choice. And number 7 is the Countess. If you have this card and the king or prince in your hand, you must discard this card. And that's quite a powerful card for figuring out what other people have in their hands if you use deduction. And finally, if you do have the princess in your hand, it says here that if you discard this card, then you are out of the round. So you need to hold on to that at all costs. So there you go, a brief run through of the mechanics of the game and some of the components. I thought we can conclude this little review now by just simply going through each card and giving you a bit of the narrative fluff on each of the cards and characters. Hampered only by the naivety of youth, Princess Annette is elegant, charming, and beautiful. Obviously, you want the princess to carry your letter. However, she is self-conscious about matters of the heart, and if confronted, will toss your letter in the fire and deny ever seeing it. Countess Wilhelmina. Always on the prowl for a handsome man or juicy gossip, Wilhelmina's age and noble blood make her one of Princess Annette's friends. While she has great influence over the princess, she makes herself scarce whenever the king or prince are around. King Arnor IV, the undisputed ruler of Tempest, for the moment. Because of his role in the arrest of Queen Mariana, he does not rate as highly with Princess Annette as a father should. He hopes to work himself back into her graces. As a social gadfly, Prince Arnaud was not as distressed over his mother's arrest as one would suppose. Since many women clamor for his attention, he hopes to help his sister find the same banal happiness by playing the matchmaker. Handmaiden Susanna. Few would trust a handmaid with a letter of importance. Fewer still understand Susanna's cleverness or her skilled ability at playing the foolish handmaid. That the queen's confidant and loyal servant escaped any attention after the queen's arrest is a testament to her clever mind. Baron Talus. The scion of an esteemed house that has long been a close ally of the royal family, Baron Talus has a quiet and gentle demeanor that conceals a man used to being obeyed. His suggestions are treated as if they came from the king himself. Priest Thomas. Open, honest, and uplifting, Father Thomas always seeks out the opportunity to do good. With the arrest of the queen, he is often seen about the palace, acting as confessor, counselor, and friend. Guard Odette. Charged with seeing to the security of the royal family, Odette follows her orders with persistence and diligence, even though her mentor is said to have drowned while fleeing arrest for complicity in the queen's treason. And with that array of characters, we now come to the conclusion of this episode of It's Only a Game. Thanks for joining us here at Grey Army Gaming. Get out there and deliver some love letters.